Ambassador Lee Hanna walked through the gleaming corridors of Nexus Prime, her footsteps echoing against the polished metal walls. The space station was massive, bigger than any human city, and it floated in the darkness between stars. She had traveled for 3 months to reach this place, carrying with her the hopes of every person on Earth. The translation device in her ear buzzed softly as alien voices filled the corridors around her. Strange creatures moved past her. Some walked on 4 legs, others floated in the air, and a few looked almost human, but with skin that shimmered like water. None of them paid her much attention. To them, she was just another newcomer from a young species they had never heard of. Captain Kim Sung-ho, her military escort, walked beside her in his dress uniform. His hand rested near his sidearm, though both of them knew that one human weapon would mean nothing here. "Remember, Ambassador," he whispered, "we are guests here. We must be careful with our words." Hannah nodded, but her mind was focused on the task ahead. Earth had been alone in the universe for so long. When they finally detected the signals from the galactic community, it felt like a miracle. Now, humanity had a chance to join something bigger, to learn from civilizations that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. The council chambers were even more impressive than she had imagined. The ceilings stretched high above, covered with stars that seemed real enough to touch. 12 massive chairs were arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different alien species. At the center of the room stood a small platform where she would make her presentation. The council members entered one by one, and Hannah studied each of them carefully. The Vorthak Prime Minister looked like a giant insect, with multiple arms and eyes that glowed in the dim light. The Altarian Chancellor had blue scales and moved with the grace of a predator. The Zephyrian representative was the most intimidating, tall, with 4 arms and a face that showed no emotion at all. "Welcome, human," said the Vorthak Prime Minister, his voice coming through her translator as a series of clicks and buzzes. "We have heard interesting things about your species. You have spread through your local star systems very quickly." Hannah stepped onto the platform and activated her holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air around her: green forests, blue oceans, and gleaming cities. "Thank you for this opportunity," she began. "I come here today to offer friendship between humanity and the galactic community." She showed them humanity's achievements: fusion power plants that could run entire continents, medical technology that could heal injuries in hours instead of months, terraforming systems that had turned Mars from a dead rock into a living world. "We have learned much in our short time among the stars," Hannah continued, "but we know we have much more to learn. We hope to share our knowledge and gain wisdom from your ancient civilizations." The Altarian Chancellor leaned forward in her chair. "Your expansion through space has been aggressive. You have claimed many systems in a short time. Some of our member species are concerned about your methods." Hannah felt her heart rate increase, but kept her voice calm. "Every system we have colonized was uninhabited. We have always checked for signs of intelligent life before establishing our settlements. We would never take a world that belonged to another species." "But what about the mining operations?" asked the Zephyrian representative, his 4 eyes fixed on her. "You have stripped entire asteroid fields bare. You consume resources at a rate that suggests unlimited hunger." "We mine asteroids because we refuse to damage living worlds," Hannah replied. "Every rock we break apart means we can leave a planet untouched. We believe this is a responsible way to grow." The council members began speaking among themselves in their own languages. Even with her translator, Hannah could not understand everything they said, but their tone worried her. She had expected curiosity, maybe even some skepticism, but there was something else here, something that felt like hostility. The Vorthak Prime Minister raised one of his arms for silence. "Your presentation is impressive, human, but we have concerns about your species' place in the galactic order. Perhaps you need guidance before you can truly join our community." "What kind of guidance?" Hannah asked, though she already feared the answer. "The kind that ensures you understand your proper place," said the Altarian Chancellor, her scales shifting to a darker shade of blue. "Young species often need time to mature before they can handle full independence." In her earpiece, Hannah heard a faint transmission from the human ship hidden at the edge of the system. Admiral Park Jong-soo's voice was barely a whisper. "We are monitoring everything, Ambassador. Stay strong." Hannah straightened her shoulders. She represented 4 billion humans who had fought for their freedom throughout history. She would not let them down now. "Humanity appreciates your concern," she said carefully. "But we have governed ourselves successfully for thousands of years. We believe we are ready to stand as equals in the galactic community." The silence that followed her words stretched on for what felt like hours. Finally, the Vorthak Prime Minister spoke. "We will consider your request. Return to your quarters, human. We will give you our answer soon." As Hannah left the chamber, she could not shake the feeling that she had just walked into a trap that had been waiting for humanity long before they ever reached the stars. 2 weeks had passed since Ambassador Lee Hannah first spoke to Galactic Council, and each day brought new problems. The meetings had become less friendly, and the questions more pointed. What had started as curiosity about humanity was turning into something much darker. Hannah sat in her small quarters on Nexus Prime, reading the latest reports from the Council's research teams. They had been studying human settlements, trade routes, and military movements. Every decision Earth had made was being questioned and twisted into something sinister. "They are calling us dangerous," she said to Captain Kim Sung-ho, who was reviewing security protocols on his tablet. "They say we expand too fast, take too much, and refuse to follow proper procedures." The captain looked up from his work. "What procedures? We had no idea they existed until 6 months ago. How could we follow rules we never knew about?" That was the heart of the problem. The Council had been watching humanity for decades, studying them from afar, but had never made contact. Now they were angry that humans had not followed their unwritten laws. It made no sense, but logic did not seem to matter here. The door chimed, and an Altarian guard entered. His blue scales were dark today, which Hannah had learned meant he was in a bad mood. "The Council requests your presence in Chamber 7, he said in broken human language. "Bring your documents." Chamber 7 was smaller than the main council room, but somehow felt more threatening. Only 3 council members were present today, the ones Hannah had come to think of as the hardliners. The Vorthak Prime Minister clicked his mandibles impatiently as she entered. The Altarian Chancellor's scales were deep purple, showing anger. The Zephyrian Warcast leader simply stared at her with his 4 unblinking eyes. "Sit down, human," said the Vorthak Prime Minister. "We have new concerns to discuss." A holographic display activated, showing images of human colonies throughout their local star cluster. Red markers appeared over several systems. "These locations," said the Altarian Chancellor, pointing with clawed finger, "show clear evidence of aggressive expansion. You have eliminated native species to make room for your settlements." Hannah studied the images carefully. The red markers were over asteroid mining sites and gas giant processing stations. "I do not understand. Those locations never had any native species. We surveyed each system thoroughly before beginning operations. Primitive life forms," corrected the Zephyrian representative. "Bacteria, simple organisms, early evolutionary forms. You destroyed them without consideration." "We are talking about microbes," Hannah said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Single-celled organisms with no intelligence, no culture, no technology. Every species must use resources to survive. Even you must mine asteroids and process gases." "We do so with proper authorization," snapped the Altarian Chancellor. "We follow protocols established over millennia of cooperation. We respect the galactic order." "What order?" Hannah asked. "You never contacted us. How could we follow rules we did not know existed?" The 3 council members exchanged looks. The Vorthak Prime Minister leaned forward in his chair. "That is precisely the problem, human. Your species acts without permission. You make decisions without consulting your betters. This cannot continue." Back on Earth, the situation was becoming clearer by the day. In the war room beneath Seoul, Admiral Park Jong-soo studied intelligence reports with growing alarm. President Yoon Dae-young sat at the head of the table, his face grim as he listened to the latest briefings. "Our deep space monitors are detecting massive fleet movements," reported Commander Lee Min-young from her station. Council ships are positioning themselves around our outer colonies. They are not responding to our communication attempts. Trade routes are being redirected. Added another officer. Ships that normally pass through human space are being warned away. They're isolating us. President Yoon drummed his fingers on the table. Admiral, what is the status of our defensive preparations? All colonies are on high alert, Park Jong-soo replied. But, sir, if they decide to attack with their full strength, our conventional forces will not be enough. We need to consider other options. The president nodded slowly. 6 months ago, when first contact had been established, the Global Defense Council had begun developing contingency plans. Nobody had wanted to think about them, but now those dark preparations were looking more necessary every day. The Prometheus systems are still hidden? He asked quietly. Yes, sir. The Council believes they are looking at research stations and mining platforms. They have no idea what those installations really contain. On Nexus Prime, Hannah faced a final ultimatum from the 3 Council members. The terms were simple but devastating. Humanity would place itself under Council supervision for a period of 500 years. All human military forces would be disbanded. All expansion would stop immediately. Earth would provide resources and technology to the Council, but would have no voice in galactic affairs. You're not offering partnership, Hannah said. You are demanding surrender. We are offering guidance, replied the Vortak Prime Minister. Your species is too young, too aggressive, too unpredictable to be allowed free reign in the galaxy. Accept our wisdom, and you may survive. And if we refuse? The Altarian Chancellor's scales shifted to deep red. Then you'll be declared a rogue species. The galaxy will be protected from your dangerous ambitions. Hannah stood up slowly. I need to consult with my government. You have 24 hours, said the Zephyrian representative. After that, we will assume your answer is no and act accordingly. As Hannah left the chamber, she activated her emergency transmitter. The message was brief but clear. They are planning to attack us. We are out of time. On Earth, Admiral Park Jong-soo received the transmission and turned as president. Sir, Ambassador Lee believes we have less than 1 day before they move against us. President Yoon closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them with new resolve. Bring the Prometheus project to full readiness. If they want a war, we will give them one they will never forget. The great assembly hall of Nexus Prime had never seen so many beings gathered in one place. Representatives from over 300 species filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a buzz of excitement and fear. Word spread throughout the galaxy that the Council was about to make an example of the human species. Ambassador Lee Hannah stood in the center of the hall, her hands bound behind her back with energy restraints that glowed blue in the dim light. She had been arrested in her quarters at dawn, with no warning and no explanation. Now she understood why. This was never meant to be a trial. It was meant to be a show. The charges were read by a mechanical voice that echoed through the hall. The human known as Lee Hannah stands accused of galactic sedition, species supremacist ideology, and crimes against the established order. The evidence has been reviewed, and the verdict has been reached. Hannah looked around the hall, seeing faces she did not recognize from dozens of different worlds. Some looked curious, others seemed afraid, and a few appeared excited by what was about to happen. She realized that many of these species had probably been threatened by the Council in the past. They were here to see what happened to those who refused to submit. The Vortak Prime Minister stood up from his seat, his insect-like body towering over the assembly. Let this be known throughout the galaxy. The species called humanity has rejected our generous offer of guidance. They believe themselves superior to civilizations that have ruled the stars for millennia. That is not true, Hannah said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's amplification system. We never claimed to be superior. We only asked to be treated as equals. The Altarian Chancellor hissed, her scales turning deep red with anger. Equals? Your species has existed in space for barely 200 years. You have no right to claim equality with your betters. Every species has a right to govern itself, Hannah replied. We offered friendship and trade. We offered to share our knowledge and learn from yours. If that makes us criminals, then I am proud to stand accused. The crowd murmured at her words. Some species had never heard anyone speak to the council this way. The Zephyrian War cast leader raised all four of his arms for silence. The human shows the same arrogance that makes her species so dangerous. They refuse to accept their place in the natural order. They consume resources without permission. They expand without authorization. They must be stopped before they corrupt other young species with their rebellious ideas. A holographic display appeared above the hall, showing images that Hannah had never seen before. The pictures claimed to show human attacks on innocent alien settlements, mining operations that had supposedly destroyed entire ecosystems, military actions that had never happened. "This is fake," Hannah said, staring at the images. "We have never attacked anyone. These events never happened." "The evidence speaks for itself," declared the Vorthak Prime Minister. "Humanity is a plague that will spread throughout the galaxy, if not stopped. Today, we begin the cure." On Earth, President Yoon Dae-young watched the broadcast with growing horror. The execution was being transmitted to every world in the galaxy, showing what happened to species that defied the Council. Beside him, Admiral Park Jong-soo stood at attention, waiting for orders. The war room was filled with officers from every branch of Earth's military. Commander Lee Min-young coordinated communications from her station, her face pale as she listened to reports from human colonies throughout their space. "Sir, Council fleets are moving into position around all our systems. They are not responding to any diplomatic channels." "How long until they are in attack position?" the President asked. 6 hours, sir. Maybe less." On the display screen, the Vorthak Prime Minister continued his speech. "The execution of this criminal will serve as a warning. Any species that refuses Council guidance will face the same fate. The galaxy must be protected from those who would challenge the natural order." Hannah stood straight despite her bonds. She thought of her home, of the blue oceans and green forests of Earth. She thought of the colonies humanity had built among the stars, the children who would grow up never knowing if they would be free or enslaved. She had one last chance to speak for all of them. "You call us dangerous because we refuse to bow down to you," she said, her voice growing stronger. "You call us criminals because we want to choose our own path. But history will remember this day differently. History will remember that humanity offered you peace, and you chose war." The Altarian Chancellor stepped forward, holding a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. "Any last words, human?" Hannah looked directly into the camera that was broadcasting her death to the galaxy. She knew that back on Earth, billions of people were watching. She knew they would remember her words. "Tell my people that I was proud to represent them. Tell them that we offered peace. But if they want war, then give them war they will never forget." The disruptor beam struck her chest, and Ambassador Lee Hannah simply vanished. Her atoms scattered across the chamber floor, leaving nothing behind but empty space and a promise of vengeance. The hall erupted in cheers from some species and horrified gasps from others. The council members looked satisfied with their demonstration. They believed they had crushed humanity's spirit and shown the galaxy the price of defiance. They could not have been more wrong. On Earth, President Yoon Dae-young stood up slowly from his chair. His eyes were dry, but his hands shook with rage. "Admiral, how many council worlds can our hidden systems reach?" "All of them, sir. Every major military installation, every fleet base, every command center. We have been preparing for this possibility since first contact." The President walked to the secure terminal and placed his hand on the scanner. "Ambassador Lee died believing in peace. But she also told us to give them a war they would never forget." He looked around the room at his officers. "Activate the extermination protocol. Show them what humanity looks like when we stop being diplomatic." The authorization codes flashed across screens throughout the room, across human space and beyond. Systems that had been sleeping for months suddenly came alive. The Council had wanted to see what happened when they pushed humanity too far. They were about to find out. The authorization codes traveled through space faster than light itself, carried by quantum transmitters that the Council had never detected. On Earth, President Yoon Dae-young watched as status lights across the command center shifted from red to green. Each light represented a weapons system that had been hidden among the stars for over a year. Admiral Park Jong-soo stood beside the massive display wall, his face grim as he coordinated the activation sequence. All systems are responding, Mr. President. Project Prometheus is fully operational. Commander Lee Min-young worked at her station, her fingers flying over controls as she brought online weapons that most of humanity didn't even know existed. Deep Space Monitoring confirms Council fleet positions. We have clear targeting solutions on all major military assets. The President looked at the tactical display, showing enemy forces throughout the galaxy. Thousands of Council ships were moving toward human space, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They had no idea that humanity had been watching them for months, tracking every movement, cataloging every weakness. They think we're helpless, he said quietly. They think killing Ambassador Lee was the end of our resistance. Show them how wrong they are. The first weapons to activate were the simplest ones, relativistic kill vehicles that had been launched from hidden bases months earlier. These tungsten rods, accelerated to nearly the speed of light, had been drifting through space on carefully calculated trajectories. Now they adjusted their course slightly and prepared to deliver justice. Captain Cho Woo-jin commanded the stealth platform Silent Thunder, disguised as a research station studying solar radiation. His sensors detected the Council's 7th Fleet approaching human territory, their commanders probably planning victory celebrations. He checked his chronometer and smiled grimly. Target acquired. He reported to Earth Command. Council's 7th Fleet, flagship Dominion's Pride, 47 vessels total. Impact in 30 seconds. The Council ships never saw it coming. The relativistic projectile struck them at 99% of light speed, turning matter into pure energy in an instant. Entire starships simply vanished, replaced by expanding clouds of plasma that glowed like miniature suns. Similar attacks occurred across the galaxy, within minutes of each other. The Vordak 3rd Fleet, pride of their insect civilization, was eliminated while still in formation near their home system. The Altarian Strike Force, considered the most advanced military unit in the galaxy, experienced total destruction before they could even send a distress signal. But the kill vehicles were just the beginning. Humanity's real weapons were far more terrifying. Station Commander Park Eun-ji oversaw the activation of the exotic matter bombs from her hidden base in the Centauri system. These devices didn't just destroy targets. They rewrote the laws of physics in small areas of space. When the Zephyrian military shipyard at Kepler 442 was targeted, it didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, leaving behind a perfectly spherical void where matter had been converted into something else entirely. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Council forces throughout the galaxy watched their most secure installations vanish without warning. Their advanced shields and armor meant nothing against weapons that ignored the normal rules of reality. In the Vordak home system, Prime Minister Zektor watched in horror as the species' greatest military base disappeared from existence. The installation had been there for 10,000 years, a symbol of their power and authority. Now it was gone, erased as if it had never existed. How is this possible? He clicked to his advisors. The humans have been in space for barely 2 centuries. Where did they get such weapons? His military commander, General Vithake, stared at the empty space where their base had been. Perhaps we underestimated them. Perhaps we should have paid more attention to what they were really doing in those research stations. On Earth, President Yoon received reports from across the galaxy. The first phase of the attack had been a complete success, but he felt no satisfaction. This wasn't victory. This was necessary survival. Casualty reports? He asked Admiral Park Jong-soo. Minimal civilian losses, sir. Our weapons targeted only military installations and enemy fleets. We warned civilian populations before each strike and gave them time to evacuate. This was perhaps the most shocking aspect of humanity's attack. Even in their rage over Ambassador Lee's murder, they showed restraint. Council civilians were being spared, given time to flee before their military bases were destroyed. It was a level of precision and mercy that the Council had never shown to anyone. Commander Lee Min-young looked up from her communication station. Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from multiple species. The Korvaxi Union has agreed to recognize human sovereignty. The Deltaran Republic is requesting immediate peace negotiations. But not everyone was ready to surrender. The Altarian Chancellor, broadcasting from a hidden bunker deep in space, sent a message filled with rage and defiance. "You think your surprise attack makes you strong?" Her voice crackled through the transmission. "We have ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years. We will not be defeated by upstart primitives." The Zephyrian War cast leader joined her in the broadcast. "You have shown your true nature. Humans, you are the monsters we always said you were. When we rebuild our fleets, we will make sure your species is completely eliminated." President Yoon listened to their threats and felt something cold settle in his chest. They still didn't understand. They thought this was just another war, another political dispute that could be settled with time and negotiation. They were wrong. "Admiral," he said quietly, "prepare the planet killers. If they want to see what monsters really look like, we'll show them what humanity is capable of when we stop holding back." The Admiral's face went pale. "Sir, are you certain? Those weapons will remain in use as long as they surrender," the President finished. "But they need to know they exist. They need to understand that we could end their civilizations completely, but we're choosing not to. Maybe then they'll finally grasp the difference between mercy and weakness." The final phase of Operation Prometheus was about to begin, and the galaxy would learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their choice to use it responsibly. The 6-hour deadline approached as the galaxy watched and waited. President Yoon Dae-young stood before the global assembly on Earth, knowing that his words would reach every inhabited world to the communication networks humanity had quietly taken control of during the first phase of their attack. "People of the galaxy," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. 18 months ago, we discovered we were not alone among the stars. We reached out with open hands, offering friendship and cooperation. Your council answered by murdering our ambassador and declaring war on our species. Behind him, massive screens showed real-time images from across the galaxy. Zephyrian civilians evacuated their homeworld as relativistic projectiles moved toward military targets. Altarian defense stations crumbled under weapons that seemed to bend space and time. Most shocking of all were the detailed scans of council leadership bunkers that were supposed to be secret and undetectable. "You believe we were weak because we chose peace first," the president continued. "You mistook our restraint for inability. Today, you learn what humanity really looks like when we stop being patient." In the command center, Admiral Park Jong-soo coordinated the final phase of the operation. Commander Lee Min-young monitored evacuation reports from targeted systems. "Sir, civilian populations have been safely relocated from all military zones. Approximately 40 million refugees are clear of impact areas." The Admiral nodded grimly. Even in their justified anger, humanity would not become the monsters the Council claimed they were. Every weapon strike was calculated to destroy only military assets. Every civilian population had been warned and given time to escape. "All weapons ready, Mr. President," Admiral Park reported, awaiting final authorization. President Yoon looked at the tactical display one last time. 3 council species had already surrendered completely. The Vorthak Prime Minister had sent a personal message admitting their mistake. The Korvaxi Union had offered full reparations for their part in conspiracy. But the Altarian Dominion and Zephyrian Warcast remained defiant, their combined fleets regrouping at the galactic core. "Execute final phase," the president ordered. Captain Kim Jun-ho commanded the weapon platform Righteous Fury, disguised for over a year as an atmospheric research station. His target was the Zephyrian homeworld's military complex, a continent-sized facility that had armed their warrior culture for thousands of years. "Target locked," he reported. "Military-industrial zone. Confirmed clear of civilians." Firing exotic matter torpedo. The weapon that struck the Zephyrian complex didn't explode in any normal sense. Instead, it created a perfectly spherical area where the laws of physics simply changed. Matter became energy. Energy became something else entirely. And when it was over, there was nothing left but a glowing crater that would puzzle scientists for generations. Similar precision strikes occurred across both empires. The Altarian Dominion's command fleet, pride of their military for centuries, was dismantled ship by ship. Each vessel's crew was given exactly 10 minutes to evacuate before their ship was reduced to its basic atoms. But perhaps most terrifying was what humanity chose not to destroy. Deep space sensors detected energy signatures from weapons that could crack planets like eggs, devices that could turn entire star systems into clouds of dust. Yet these remained silent, their power held in reserve. The surviving council members, broadcasting from emergency shelters scattered across the galaxy, finally understood the true scope of their mistake. The humans didn't just have superior weapons. They had the wisdom to use them with surgical precision. "This is impossible," whispered the Altarian Chancellor from her hidden bunker. "How did they build such weapons without us knowing?" Her military advisor, General Fexani, studied the tactical reports with growing horror. They've been planning this since first contact. Every research station they built, every mining platform they deployed, they were all weapons in disguise. We watched them prepare for this war and never realized what we were seeing. Captain Lee So-young, commanding the stealth destroyer Silent Justice, opened communication channels to the remaining Council forces. "Attention all Council fleets. This is humanity's final message to your leadership. We came in peace. You chose war. We have demonstrated that your military superiority was an illusion." The message was broadcast in every known language, reaching every corner of the galaxy. "We could end your civilizations within hours. We possess weapons that could sterilize your homeworlds and eliminate your species completely. But we offer you something your council never gave us, mercy." The terms were simple but absolute. Immediate ceasefire and withdrawal from human space. Recognition of humanity's right to exist as equals in the galaxy. Reparations for the murder of Ambassador Lee Hanna. Most importantly, the establishment of a new government based on cooperation rather than domination. Within 72 hours, every surviving council member had agreed to the terms. The Altarian Chancellor, her pride broken by the systematic destruction of her fleets, sent a personal message of surrender. The Zephyrian War caste leader, watching his homeworld's military might reduce to glowing craters, finally admitted defeat. The war that was supposed to destroy humanity had lasted exactly 3 days. In that time, the galaxy had learned a lesson that would be remembered for millennia. True strength wasn't the ability to destroy. It was a wisdom to know when destruction served justice and when mercy served the greater good. President Yoon addressed the galaxy one final time as peace negotiations began. "We could have chosen extinction for our enemies. We could have ruled through fear and conquered through terror. Instead, we chose justice tempered by mercy. This is what humanity offers the galaxy, not domination, but partnership between equals." Years later, historians would debate whether humanity's greatest weapon had been their exotic technology or their moral restraint. Those who lived through the 3-day war knew the truth. It was both, wielded by a species that understood the difference between having the power to destroy and having the wisdom to build something better. The Council had executed humanity's envoy, believing they were crushing a dangerous species. Instead, they had awakened something far more powerful than a conqueror. They had awakened teachers who could show the galaxy what true civilization looked like.